I want you to remember back in your elementary school days. For me, the year's 2004, and I'm putting my sick Velcro shoes strapped on tight to get ready for school. And so I get dropped off at the school parking lot where all the other kids and I still have a few minutes to spare before school starts. So we do what any kids would do in that scenario. Play tag. The reason why I'm asking you to remember back to your childhood is because everybody has played tag at least once in their lifetime. It's a simple playground game that's existed for hundreds, if not thousands of years across the globe. But very rarely do we see this type of game within video games. And based on the title, you probably can guess where I'm going with this. Tagging is one of the most overlooked gaming genre ever in existence. And hear me out, it's not as linear as one person chasing another person in a straight line. That would be boring. So, just to give myself a little credential, I've been playing a tagging game called Quarantine Region for over a decade. And during that decade, I've done research, found evidence, and noticed patterns within communities that involve tagging, which leads me to believe it's only a matter of time before tagging games reaches mainstream gaming. And I know, that's a bold claim to make, but let me walk you through how I came to this conclusion. But before getting into the video, if you end up liking this video, I'd appreciate it if you consider subscribing as it helps with the channel's growth and blah blah blah, YouTube algorithm, you know the deal. Enjoy the video. So I'll first bring you to a real life example outside of video games because it's important to know the origin. This is World Chase Tag, the world's first international tagging sport created in 2011. If you remember, this was a couple years after the time parkour blew up on social media and even had a showcasing in the movie Casino Royale, which came out in 2006. Oftentimes, these people who did parkour were referred to as freerunners because of how freely they were able to glide through obstacles with such ease. And what World Chase Tag has done is they brought these freerunners into a confined room with many obstacles to play a game of tag with each other and make a sport out of it. So after getting these freerunners together, the creators of World Chase Tag, Christian and Damien, saw even more potential for the sport because of how entertaining it was watching these freerunners play tag. And it wasn't long before their videos on YouTube started blowing up alongside with their sport because of how entertaining it was. I bring this real life example because it's not too far off from what a tagging game looks like in a video game. This is Combat Arms. It was developed in 2008 by a company in South Korea named Dubik Game Studios, and they wanted to make a cool FPS game that's fast-paced with fluid movement. And the game was a hit, amassing over millions of players within the first year. But what we'll be focusing on is a game mode they released called Quarantine Region. It's an infection game where zombies have to infect the humans and the humans have to try and survive. And what the developers didn't know is they've created the most extreme game of tag ever made by complete accident. Instead of talking about what I mean, I'm gonna show you. This is how the game was intended to be played. You sit in an area with your fellow humans with a machine gun to keep all the zombies away. You can even set up some traps with mines and explosives to wait until a zombie comes and you detonate it, get some kills. And for the most part, the game was intended for you to camp in one area while you fend off the zombies. But this isn't how the game ended up being played. Instead, what people chose to do is run away from the zombies. And they do this by taking advantage of Combat Arms' fluid movements and jumping through obstacles throughout the map as fast as they can while juking zombies. But first, you should probably know the very basic of juking. I'm sure you've tried it before while growing up and have seen NBA players juking their opponents. Juking is when you make your opponent believe you'll go one direction, but instead you go another direction, causing your opponent to trip up, which is often referred to as breaking ankles. And in this game, you do it over and over again to avoid the zombies. Very similar to what World Chase Tag freerunners do in their game of tag. But the difference is that in this game, you can kill the taggers. And people equip themselves with a lot of explosives so they can try to get kills while running away from the zombies. And what these people would do is throw grenades while being chased, then lead the zombies to where they'd thrown the grenade and take cover at the last second before it blows up, which kills the zombies. So combination of Combat Arms' fluid movement, juking, and throwing grenades created a gameplay that heightened the skill ceiling in order to play the game in this way. And people with this type of gameplay style were called freerunners, referring to the people that do parkour. And admittedly, freerunning isn't a necessary way of playing the game if you're strictly playing to win against the zombies. If you wanted to win, you'd play with your friends and spam rocket launchers together. But a lot of people found this way of playing boring. So freerunning offered an exciting way to play the game that gives you an adrenaline rush while doing doing it. And speaking from experience, to this day, if I were to get a good run-in against the zombies, my hands would be shaking uncontrollably, like I snorted 4 lines of G Fuel. Plus, it's a good way to show off how good you are at the game. And who doesn't want to show off how much of a gamer they are to their peers? But to encourage this type of gameplay, Freerunners would host rooms called Knife Till Last 4, which means you're only allowed to use knife until you're one of the last 4 humans standing. And when you're one of the last 4 humans, you're allowed to use rockets, grenades, and anything you'd like. This way, people at the end would be able to experience the most intense chases, because Freerunners would be going up against many zombies at once, and when you're successfully evading this many people, it makes for one of the most addicting games. And at first glance, you might not know what's going on exactly, but this is what that would look like. So there's a few things that's going on here that could make this game overwhelming to some. When you want to run like this, you're keeping track of where all the zombies are, and you take into consideration what their skill levels are too, because if you're up against higher level zombies, they'll start predicting where you're gonna go. So you have to always be thinking 2 steps ahead of them, and if players have bad ping, you want to take that into consideration too, because it'll look like they have more range compared to the zombies with a good ping. And every second that goes by while trying to think many steps ahead of the zombies, the feeling gets more and more intense. And if you actually pull through to hit that 0 mark, it's pure heroin in my veins. And it just makes you come back for more just to revisit that feeling, even if it means taking hours to get a good run in. But this type of gameplay would be popularized more as freerunning clans and montages came out. If you don't know what clans are, it's basically a group of people within the game, and clans would try to recruit the best players they can find. And depending on what clan you were in, people made quick judgment of whether you're a good player or not, because certain clans required you to be at a certain skill level in order to join the clan. And this was a good way to build the community, because it gave aspiring freerunners something to work towards. Just to tell you how dedicated some people were, sometimes people would wait months and even years to join a clan they wanted to be a part of. So even though there was a whole community of freerunners playing this game, the developers of the game never really took notice of the freerunners. And I should mention, by the time Freerunners came to be, Dubik Game Studio, the original game developers I mentioned earlier, wasn't in control of the game anymore. It was Nexon, a big video game publisher in South Korea, that had full reins to the game now. And what Nexon had in mind for quarantine mode is a game where people would camp and work together as a team, rather than cater to these so-called freerunners. And they would start adding pay-to-win items in the game that encourage camping more, such as specialists, which are characters that can equip more campy weapons like turrets and claymore. They would also randomly up zombie HP, which made it harder for freerunners to get kills with their loadout. And it wasn't too long before they went on a banning spree whenever they saw people hosting these Knife Till Last 4 games, because they viewed it as teaming and that we weren't playing the game the way it was intended to be played. So what that communicated to the freerunning community is that these people running the game clearly didn't like freerunners so much, even though freerunners were one of the most passionate community they had within the game. And what I wanted to show you from this game is how fun a game of tag can truly be. But another important takeaway from this is that the developers had their own vision of what the game should be, which drove away the community of freerunners that formed in the game. And believe it or not, this isn't the first game where developers discouraged freerunning in their own game, which brings us to our next evidence. Now, I'm sure some of you have heard of the game Dead by Daylight. It's a popular game where there's one killer who is the chaser and 4 survivors who are the evaders. And the goal for the survivors is to fix all 7 generators around the map to open a door to escape, while the killer's objective is to kill all the survivors to prevent them from fixing the generators and escaping. Although this game doesn't have as fluid of a movement as Combat Arms, survivors still learn how to free run against the killers. But the Dead by Daylight community often referred to this technique as looping or 316, because in order to juke the killers, you would loop around their body. And the biggest figure they had to popularize this playstyle was 72 Hours, who is a popular streamer, and maybe you know him from Fortnite as well. So a community of loopers formed, and they also started making montages of themselves doing these jukes and looping the killers to show off their skills, similar to what Combat Arms community had done. But it wasn't long before the developers took notice and thought that these freerunners needed to be nerfed, because some people were complaining that being a killer is too hard due to them being outplayed by these freerunners. So the developers nerfed the runners by taking away obstacles, which made it a lot harder for survivors to run away from the killer. And just like Combat Arms, the community of freerunners on Dead by Daylight was painfully ignored by the game developers. But the biggest takeaway here is that we see freerunners existing on a different game outside of Combat Arms. So upon looking at many games and searching for any tagging games out there, I'll tell you the single biggest reason why I think tagging will become a bigger gaming genre in in the future. And the reason is the concept of freerunning is a trend. You hop on any games that involves tagging and you will see freerunners in the game. This is something that always gets developed by the people without the game developers intending on it. So I might sound like I'm getting ahead of myself because I know I only gave 2 examples so far, so here's a few more. Here's Crossfire. It's a FPS game made in 2007, most popular in China and in the Philippines. They too have an infection mode similar to Combat Arms, and big surprise, they have a community of freerunners and many montages still being made to this day. And just like Combat Arms, this game was made with the intention for humans to work together by camping with a gun, but here we see many people free running rather than camping in one area. Nobody taught these people how to free run, just like how nobody taught me how to start free running on Combat Arms. And this is what I mean by free running being a trend. People will always be drawn towards free running in a tagging game. Not convinced yet? Here's Gorilla Tag, a game that's been gaining traction for the past couple of months since its release in February of 2021. Even though it's a VR game, this is as a classic game of tag as you can get. I mean, it's in the name of the game. And I would say this is the first game ever to have the game centered around tagging. And what I mean by that is this game encourages people to run away rather than camping like you see in Combat Arms, or just using stealth like in Dead by Daylight. All you do is either run away or chase, and as people are becoming more competitive at the game, I see a community of freerunners developing within the game, and it reminds me of the very early stages of Combat Arms, when people were trying to learn how to run away from zombies. And just to give more quick examples, there's games like Fortnite or Minecraft where people can create their own game modes within the game itself, and tagging exists in both of these games. In these games, there's many freerunners that formed and play on a regular basis, and in some sense, this reminds me of the time when Battle Royale games were on the come up, when Hunger Games on Minecraft was still a thing, and slowly we saw Battle Royale games rise to being one of the biggest gaming genres ever to exist today. So I've given you all these examples of games where free running exists, and what this exposes is that there's an audience for this type of game. There's people that'll still play it religiously despite their game developers not supporting their gameplay style. But it doesn't end here, I have more evidence for you. So let's switch up the pace to content creators that's been doing well. This is Dream, and he has one of the fastest growing channels on YouTube at the moment. He's most known for doing this series called Minecraft Speedrunner vs Hunters. To summarize the series, the idea is for Dream to beat Minecraft while Hunters interferes by chasing and trying to kill him. And if the Hunters successfully kill him, the game is over and the Hunters win. But if Dream is able to beat Minecraft without dying, he wins. So to break it down even more, the core idea is runner versus chaser. In other words, a game of tag. But if you've never watched Dream's series before, the reason people watch his videos is because there's a lot of tense moments where you think he might get caught. But then he would pull off an unthinkable stunt to get away from the chasers. And it's that tense feeling of barely getting away that is the core of what makes freerunning so enjoyable. And I would argue that Dream is one of the first freerunner with a huge following like this. Dream also made a video called Minecraft Ultimate Tag, referring to the TV series Ultimate Tag, which was inspired by World Chase Tag. And in this extra scene of this video, Dream and George says how much fun they had playing tag on Minecraft. Take a look at this.
Your mother's number and $1,000. Oh, you need to send me the $1,000.
Oh yeah, I gotta do that too. That game is fun though.
Yeah, that is fun. It's like so intense when they're chasing you. Like it actually has adrenaline pumping.
Yeah.
Pumping.
And
pump.
And I think it was at this moment when Dream realized the potential for a tag game as a content idea, because he went on to make his most popular series, Minecraft Speedrunner vs Hunter, right after making this Minecraft Ultimate Tag video. Whereas prior to the tag video, he was making content revolving around modding Minecraft, which were performing well on YouTube, but it's when he released the tagging video when he truly blew up to where he is today at 22 million. Even Mr. Beast, a YouTuber with over 60 million subscribers, made a few tagging content on his channel, and these got views too because of the tense moments that happens in the video, along with Mr. Beast doing outrageous things that he usually does in his videos. And I'll mention World Chase Tag again because they've gotten a lot of traction over the years as well, and people watch these chases because they want to feel the tense moments this sport has to offer. It keeps the viewers guessing whether or not the runner will get caught, because it's a game where one slip up could cost the game, which is why just watching it can be such a tense experience. But the point is that people are entertained by tagging videos, and Dream has shown that it's possible to make Minecraft tagging entertaining to watch for millions of people, which means that it's in the realm of possibility that tagging games in a video game can be entertaining to watch. So if a more competitive scene emerges within a tagging game, It's also possible that it becomes an esport with many spectators, just like how World Chase Tag has proven itself to be a sport that is very entertaining to watch. So I'll say this again, tagging as a video game is criminally overlooked as a gaming genre. A lot of the games I mentioned earlier, if not all of them, never intended to have people specialized in running. People never thought of letting movement take the spotlight to outplay their opponents. Comet Arms is a prime example of what an exciting tagging game would look like, and it's still barely scratching the surface of the genre, because there's so many twists you could add to a game of tag within a video game, such as adding abilities or being able to build walls like you can in Fortnite. You honestly can let your imagination go wild and come up with so many ideas for tagging games. And it took me over a decade just to realize the real potential for this gaming genre and finally make a video on it. Freerunning is one of my passions I've had ever since I was a kid playing Combat Arms, and my goal is to share that with people that's never experienced it before, because it's an art form that the gaming community haven't seen that much of. So I wanted to dedicate a video to the freerunners out there to tell them that tagging and freerunning game is a real gaming genre that'll form eventually. And it's one of my dreams to see the tagging genre thrive in the future and to see people enjoy the game. All the while proving to myself that I was right about the genre when making this video. So now that you know about freerunning, try it out for yourself. You might have fun with it. Anyway, thanks for watching and consider subscribing so you can join us on our freerunning journey. Peace.